I think when we set up medicine professional corporations, and probably the vast majority of us have Med Corps, we think that we're done. Because we know that medicine corporation is to defer taxes, then we'll just put our investments in there. We'll be better off than we were if we didn't have a medicine pro corp. But that's not the case. There still needs to be time and attention paid to where you're putting your investments. Hi, I'm Dr. Genhee So, founder of ElevateMD, and today we're going to talk about 3 of the most common mistakes physicians make with their medicine professional corporations. As physicians, we have great opportunity, and we're lucky to have that opportunity to be able to put our investments or our savings into a number of different buckets. And there are a lot of options. Certainly, the more money that we make and save, the options start to grow. And there's a ton of options outside. And so how do we determine which one's better? Do we put this investment inside this corp, or do we put this investment and leave it on the personal side? Most of us as incorporated physicians, when we think about incorporating and the reason why we incorporate, the first thing that we come to automatically is tax deferral. And we think that we're smart because we know that's the reason why we put the Med Corp up in the first place. But tax deferral, while it's true, isn't just a one-size-fit-all blanket statement. And that's because our tax system in Canada is so complex and so integrated with so many different moving parts that it's an almost impossible task to do on your own and get it perfect. So here's one of the biggest mistakes that people make with their incorporation is that they think that because they know that it's a tax deferral vehicle, that's all they need to know about it. And that's simply not true. One of the other big things that people make with their corporations is they set up a corporation, but they don't invest in it. One of the number one or maybe common rules that we know when we're trying to decide whether or not to establish a corporation or not, one of the first questions that was presented to me was, are you going to save enough money? Can you save enough money? And back when I was establishing a corporation, the number was about $50,000. When I decided, when I asked myself, should I set up a medicine professional corporation? The first question that was asked was, can you save 50 grand? If you can save 50 grand inside your medicine professional corporation, given all the costs that are incurred by maintaining a corp on a regular basis, then the benefit of you having that money saved inside the corp will outweigh the costs to have the corp in the first place. The mistake that I made was thinking that because a corp was good for tax deferral and an RRSP was good for tax sheltering, I prioritized my RRSPs over my Med Corp. The reason for that is because I had a very simplistic understanding of what tax shelter and tax deferral mean. I was too busy to get into the weeds of what all the rules and regulations were, but if I knew that RRSP was for tax sheltering and it was great at sheltering tax where I didn't have to pay tax on the investments inside that RRSP, that of course, tax sheltering would be better than tax deferral, because tax deferral in my mind is you still have to pay the tax. You just don't have to pay all of the tax up front. I mean, why wouldn't I prioritize the tax shelter first? And this is a big pervasive mistake that I see a lot of physicians do. Maybe they know the ins and outs better than I do about corporations and RRSPs, but one of the big mistakes that I made about learning or understanding about tax sheltering and tax deferral is I used the model from my parents, but my parents weren't physicians, and my parents didn't earn the same income that I do now as a hardworking doc. They earned considerably less in their early years. That's what I learned about RRSPs. I didn't have a formal financial education, so I learned from my parents and my friends. And I think a lot of us fall into this boat. Opening up a conversation about finances and allowing myself to hear stories and listen to stories about other people, you start to realize that your mistakes aren't so different than other people's. One of the pervasive mistakes that I've seen amongst incorporated docs is when they have money to save, they put it into their RRSP first. And for some of us, the money that they put in their RRSP is the maximum amount that they can contribute in any given year. What I would say to that is have a good conversation and think, because what I've discovered is that not all investments inside an RRSP will perform as well as they could inside a corporation. corporation. It doesn't hold true for all investments. So we can't just take the approach of put your investments and prioritize your investments inside your RRSP, and then whatever you have left over, put inside your corporation. It simply doesn't work, and it's not as effective. You will be paying more tax if you do that. The second big mistake that I see physicians do who are incorporated is they'll set up the corporation, but they won't save inside it. And this is a lose-lose all around, because you're not using the power of tax deferral, housing your investments inside the corporation, but you're paying for the service or the opportunity to do so. What you need to do if you're already incorporated is take advantage of saving inside the corporation. We all make a decent income. It's about setting priorities, finding the right financial plan that works for you, but looking at saving first and what you can save, and putting that investments and considering saving those investments inside your corp, because saving some investments inside your corp will do better than saving it inside your RRSP. The third mistake that I see incorporated physicians do is not stay current. And hey, look, I'm not asking everyone to stay current with the news and figure out how changes in taxes is going to affect our corporations and our wealth. But if you can't stay current, just like I can't stay current, then make sure that you have the right wealth management team behind you that can help you stay current so they can do that work for you. A corporation is much like us in our careers. It's not a set it and forget it. It's not a one size fits all. It's not one track. There's all kinds of bumps that present to us along the way. There's different events, whether it be life events, career events, news events, that are going to affect how we treat our corporation. And one of the biggest things that is always happening and always changing is the tax treatment on your investments and your income inside your corporation. It would be great if we could just keep a regular savings plan, save every month, dump it inside really great investments inside our corporation, and we'd be fine. We could grow a decent nest egg, and at the time of retirement, we could pull from it via salary or dividend and live happily ever after. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The Canadian tax structure system is built in such a way that if you are very successful at saving money and investing money inside your corporation, they will start to penalize you on the income that you place inside your corporation. And that income can be the billings from your medical practice. So what does that mean for us as incorporated physicians who've been responsible and invested and saved money inside our corp? The bottom line, if you're doing great and you're saving at least $1 million inside your corporation in investments, you may be getting taxed way more than you should be, way more than you need to. If you have $1 million or more saved inside your corporation and invested, you may be paying more tax on the income that you earn from your medical practice. It's a mistake that's a huge silent wealth killer for our community, and it's a mistake that's completely avoidable. The third biggest mistake that I see docs make with their Med Corps is they treat their Med Corp like a snapshot in time, or they treat their Med Corp like accountants treat our Med Corps. Things that have all happened in the past or that have already transpired, or transactions that have already occurred. This is where big tax leaks happen. If we don't think about our corporations and how to invest smartly today, a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, then we're not going to be properly prepared. We need to have a game plan in place for the long time horizon, not just for today and how best to make our money work for us this year, but how do we strategically place our money so that we get the most tax efficiency, not just now, 20 years from now. What this means is that we need to start thinking about not just how we're going to live day to day today, but how are we going to plan properly so that when it comes time to retire, that we've got a game plan already in place. Mistakes that I've seen with late career physicians is they focus on saving. Maybe they think about investments, not really. They just want to build out that nest egg as big as they can, get as high of a dollar value inside of their corporation. But what they don't realize, had they been more strategic 10, 15, 20 years ago about about where they placed their money, they would have arrived at the same number, maybe even more, but had better tax savings power at the time of retirement. So when you're thinking about setting up your investments properly inside your corporation and outside your corporation, keep in mind that you want to make sure that plan takes into consideration how you're going to draw that money 20 years from now, how you're going to use that money 5-10 years from now. When you think about the long time horizon, that's going to be your best friend to mitigate the most tax possible. The top 3 financial mistakes that docs make. Try to avoid prioritizing your RRSP over your medicine professional corporation, particularly if you're a high net worth physician. RRSPs are great, but they shouldn't always be the number 1 priority. Number 2, think about your investing inside your corporation over a long time horizon, not just about today and tomorrow, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. If you do that, you're going to find that you have a better wealth architecture in place to save you more money and have more wealth in the future. And number 3, if you have a corporation, use it. And if you're a high net worth physician or a high income earning physician, there should be a good reason why you don't have a corporation. Save wisely. You'll be better off for it. I'm Dr. Genhee So, founder of ElevateMD. If you want to learn more about how to avoid these 3 big mistakes that incorporated docs do, visit my website at drgenheeso.com. Thanks so much for joining. I'll see you in the next episode.